Phill Stead, farm at Great Poston farm, a hill farm in the Shropshire Hills, 335 acres, got 120 suckler cows, like 350 ewes. So we silage about just over 100 acres of grass, and then we grow around about 6 to 10 acres of fodder beet every year. And we've got roughly 20 acres of woodland and loads of hedgerows, to do with a few more really. So that's why we're getting on planting some. So this is our wood pasture. So we planted a tree with like about 10 trees around the outside to create scrub, and then grass in between for stock to graze. It's good for the stock to get in amongst the trees when we have the hot summer. Also good for the shelter in the winter months when it's wet and windy. We're pretty exposed up here. We planted over 1.5 kilometres of hedgerow last year. The reason behind it really was just more shelter for the stock and to help the wildlife as well, really. So yeah, if we had to do this on our own, we wouldn't be able to manage, not with our day-to-day stuff anyway. So we asked a local girl, Lucy, if she could get some volunteers together and come and help us plant them. I was a bit dubious to start with of volunteers coming, but they weren't actually bad people. So yeah, cups of tea and plenty of coffee, cake and sausage rolls, and they were away. We've created a wooded corridor made up of hedgerows and spinneys from one end of the farm to the other, and from there it joins up with what the Browns are doing at Newhouse farm.
I'm Neil Brown. We're farming 300 acres, family-owned farm, South Shropshire. We farm 800 breeding ewes, 35 suckler cows, and we take everything through to finishing. Trees was not really on top of my list. When I think of my farming practices, sometimes really I just find them a bit of a nuisance in the fields, but now currently what we're doing is looking into splitting the fields up, rotational grazing, putting smaller paddocks in, so I can see where trees are going to have a major benefit for shade and shelter for the livestock. At the moment we've split the field into 8 paddocks, roughly about 5 acres apiece, with the option of splitting them again. We've just installed a solar water pump to get water to a 10,000 litre tank at the highest point of the field, which we're now gravity feeding to serve the smaller paddocks. But I can see that there isn't much shade in some of the paddocks currently, so we've took the option up of planting some in-pasture trees to serve the purpose of shade and shelter for the livestock. We've planted a mix of mixed species. We've used these cactus guards, very easy to install. We've used 2 guards and put one on top of the other to get the height for the cows. Takes less space up than railing and probably costs a lot less as well. So here we've fenced the watercourses off, permanently electric fenced them to keep the livestock out of the watercourse and easier to see and check the livestock when you're coming round. We're creating these wildlife corridors. We haven't planted any trees in them, but we'll just let everything grow naturally. We had funding for this project, for the trees, guards and all the rotational grazing kit. We had the funding through the Farming and Protected Landscapes programme. Planting trees on our farm isn't all about helping the livestock, it's also to help our carbon footprint and to help with the climate change that we're facing currently. My father is always in favour of Plantonian pasture trees, even though he keeps saying to me that they won't be much benefit in his lifetime, but they certainly will be for mine and for my son, the next generation.
We're at Planton Farm today. We're an 80-acre livestock farm, all permanent pasture and trees. We have a suckler herd of cattle, we finish everything ourselves, laying hens, meat chickens during the summer on a pasture system, and a few pigs. We sell all of our meat directly and our eggs go into Myriad in Ludlow. So we're in our wood pasture planting here, and we've got kind of a mixture of more densely planted and a little bit more open planted native trees to kind of recreate wood pasture, which is what part of the UK used to be really when we look back in time, and it is really just an ideal landscape for cattle to live in, for shade, shelter, browse, so like a way of introducing more trees into the landscape without kind of taking away from anything else, like adding to the productivity. When we planted our trees, what we did that thing like would happen in nature where scrub would come up around a tree to protect it from kind of nibbling deer, etc. So these are all, we've got hawthorns, 3 hawthorns at the base of each tree to give them that kind of layer of protection and extra browse for the cattle as time goes on. So this feels a bit crazy, but as part of our wood pasture planting, this is recreation of scrub. So basically it's just hedge species but planted in clumps. When it came to deciding where to put the scrub, which is part of the Countryside Stewardship Wood Pasture Scheme, we definitely didn't like stick it in the middle of our best hayfield. So we've chosen areas that around the edge, so all of ours are in kind of like little plots where we've got rough areas around the edge. And this one in particular, we've got boundaries with our neighbours, and they also have livestock. So as part of kind of creating a buffer for TB reasons and other disease reasons, it means the animals in this corner now in our field don't have nose-to-nose contact with our neighbours. So we've kind of like selected it to be useful to us as part of the farming system, as well as having the benefits of having more scrub. To start with, the cattle don't have access to this, it's fenced off, but over time, once they're established, then the cows will have access, and it will add to the browse of their diet. If we think of nature and farming working together, the more we can mimic nature and use natural processes, then the lower our costs are. So for example, if we have more trees and hedgerows that the animals have access to, they're getting more minerals, and it's likely that we would need less wormers or less mineral supplements and bolusing and things like that. So we don't worm the cattle, not because we don't want to, we don't have a need to, because we are giving our cattle kind of exposure to these things. So it's actually having a financial benefit as well. So you can see at the moment we've got our chickens in the middle of quite an open field. It's classic, we've got hedge around the edge but no trees in the middle. So another motivator for planting the wood pasture is that chickens that are jungle fowl originally and would live in woodland edge and scrubby areas will be able to live in the wood pasture and get the kind of like real benefit of being under the trees. On the corner of the farm, we've got this like 1 hectare conifer plantation. So what we've been doing is making the most of the trees for livestock. So at the moment, we've got some pigs in here, which are keeping nice and warm and making great fun with digging up through the forest floor. But then in the summer, we have the cows in here. So when it's hot, we kind of try and plan our grazing so that during kind of any periods of heat, then they get access to come into the trees for shade. I think sometimes we look at a tree and see it as just an individual thing standing there, but really it's like the king of the ecosystem holding everything together. Whether that be deep roots in the soil communicating with plants or other trees, that's proven now. Or the birds that live in them, the butterflies that feed in them. And then the cattle and the sheep that rub on it, get shade from it, eat the leaves, and have all manner of different benefits from being amongst trees.
I wasn't sure about planting trees really, so we thought we'd just try 10. So we planted 10, and those 10 look a bit lost really. So this year we've actually gone and planted another 10, with the option of planting more again in the future, because just how we've split the field up and how we're going to graze this block, trees are going to have a major benefit for us.